Oh, baby, it is July, and you know what that means. July 14th, Bastille Day. July 16th, Rural Transit Day. July 28th, National Parents Day. It's a big month, Dave, and we are here to get you ready for Rural Transit Day. I can't even say it. Sorry.
Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Yes. This was Dave's intro yesterday, talking about all the cool dates in July that are actually, relevant, like July 4th and training.
I forgot about July 24th.
Which is
what?
Nothing. Oh, is that your? Oh, all right. Welcome to
Jamie knows what it is.
Yeah, with Dave Richard and Dan Schneier. I missed you guys. Great show yesterday. At least the first 15 minutes, which I listened to in the car this morning. I'm sure the rest of it was good as well. Dan, I sent the notes pretty late for today's show. You knew what we were talking about, but if you look at the injuries, news, and notes section, why don't you go ahead and read the last item in injury, news, and notes section? Just our last.
You literally sent this, according to my inbox, 2 minutes ago. But
yeah, go ahead. And just
a Dan Schneier story. How do you have a story? We haven't even talked in like a week or two. Where's this story coming from?
Coming from the bar after softball last
night. Oh no. Okay.
So guys, today's topic is players we are worried about being wrong about. We might have a strong conviction, strong feeling about a certain player, but what if we're wrong, and who are we worried about being wrong about? But before that, I have a trivia question for you. One of the players that Dan is worried about being wrong about is Jonathon Brooks. I just wanted to kind of take a look at how some of the players who are coming off torn ACLs did. So obviously Breece Hall comes to mind. Trivia question: how many carries did Breece Hall have in Week 18 against the New England Patriots?
26.
7.
37 carries.
Oh my God.
That's what I said. 37.
Yeah. 178 yards and a touchdown.
God.
My mic went out.
What was the point of that if you're the Jets?
And they won 17-3.
What was the point of that? They're out of the playoffs. It can only hurt their draft position. Nobody tries to play for that. But at the very least, protect your franchise players. Just grinding him into the line for 37 carries. What was the score of that game? 13-10, Adam?
17-3. 17-3, yeah.
Disgusting.
Big Week 18 win. He played 89% of the snaps, which was a season high for Breece Hall. All right, so let's talk about players that you're worried about being wrong about, and there's a mutual one that showed up on both of your lists. And the fun part about this, I don't know if this is the case, it's Kyren Williams, right, who's just going to use a different ADP today. We use Draft Sharks ADP. He's 16th overall on Draft Sharks ADP. Kyren Williams. You both said you were worried about being wrong about Kyren Williams, but that could be Dave's worry that he's too high on Kyren Williams. Dan's worry that he's too low. I have no idea. So, Dave, what is your concern? How do you feel about Kyren, and what is your concern?
How do I feel about him? I feel like he's an early round 2 running back who offers potential to be a top 5 guy based on what he did last year, based on the offense that he's in. But I'm worried that I might be too high on him, knowing that this is a day 3 running back who really just took advantage of an opportunity and did get better as the season went along. If you watched him from week 1 and week 2 and then compared it to the end of the year, he got better. He was a better running back and certainly got more efficient as the season went on. But he's got a litany of injuries already in his young NFL career. This is a team that will love to throw the ball if their quarterback is healthy, and it looks like he is. And they drafted Blake Corum, who at bare minimum could take 8 to 10 touches off of Kyren Williams' plate week in and week out. And that kind of hurts the upside a little bit. There's also the chance that Blake Corum could overtake Kyren Williams at some point if Corum proves that he's the better rusher. I worry a little bit that we saw Kyren Williams have this amazing year and that it could all fall apart very easily in 2024.
And Dan, what is your concern as it relates to being wrong about Kyren Williams?
Yeah, it's flip side for me, Adam. I'm worried I'm too low on Kyren Williams. As it stands right now, don't plan to draft any Kyren Williams this year. I can't imagine any scenario where he'll be on my roster. Auction league, no shot. And then snake draft's very unlikely, depending on, it would have to be a big fall into round 2. But my issue is that, look, all the points that Dave just made could easily play themselves out again. First of all, we're all expecting Blake Corum, just because he's a cookie cutter fit on paper, to play a role this year. That's not necessarily true. Rookies don't always play roles. They have to first prove that they can do what Kyren Williams does best and probably top 5 at this point in the NFL. And that's pass protection and understanding the pass game and understanding with a quarterback like Matt Stafford, who not every quarterback does it. I'd say at this point, a handful of quarterbacks do this. And it's why Tom Brady the other day discussed why quarterback play is so bad around the NFL. And that's take authority pre-snap of the plays. Understand how to get your offense into the right checks, get your offensive line into the right slides and protections. That's something that the running back plays a big role in. And Kyren Williams is one of the best in the NFL. It keeps him on the field. It kept him on the field. He also did a better job, people realize, of running between the tackles using his mental processing. He does an excellent job of setting up blocks and processing that space. These are all things that could lead to another high snap share, targets, a lot of carries type of season, and then hopefully a lot of touchdowns, because that's really what made his fantasy season. If we look at it right now, he had 15 total touchdowns last year. Fantasy is a game of touchdowns, targets, and yards, and he had a lot of touchdowns. But on the flip side of this, the reason I'm not going to be drafting any Kyren is I see touchdown regression coming. I'm worried a little bit about Blake Corum being a much better competition, and I'm worried in some ways about, with a healthy Cooper Kupp, more of that touchdown and more of that, I guess, production of the offense coming through the passing game.
Yeah, and it was 12 touchdowns rushing, 3 receiving in only 12 games. He was on pace for 21 total touchdowns. But he was also on pace for 21.4, not on pace. He averaged 21.4 PPR fantasy points per game, which is incredibly elite. He was the number 2 running back per game. So that is interesting that you both are worried about being wrong about Kyren Williams, but for different reasons. Dave, that he's too high on Kyren, and Dan, that he's too low, which goes to show you that this guy's going to be somewhat of a polarizing player. Yes. Let's talk about the right time to draft Kyren Williams. Okay, got to be in round 2 at the earliest.
Well, I think this is a simple thing to figure out. Dan, where do you have Kyren Williams ranked in your overall rankings?
So again, just most of the leagues I play in are PPR, half PPR. So
sure, let's go full PPR.
Full PPR. I'd probably have him a range that doesn't seem on paper to make much sense. So probably in the 17 to 20 range.
Okay. Can you give me a number between 17 and 20?
17 to 20. That's
so the only thing is I typically end up doing rankings, but I typically end up doing them a little bit later in the off season. Obviously, as an editor behind the scenes, I'm not tasked with doing rankings. I don't have my full rankings up yet, Jake. Okay, so I'm just kind of going off the top of my head.
Let's just take 20, okay? Because you're the pessimistic one compared to me.
Sure.
I've got him at 15.
Okay.
So if you get Kyren Williams, it's 17 or 18 on draft day. Is it really egregious?
No, and that's the thing. Like I will ultimately end up taking him in that range, especially that's the thing. It's like if I'm in full
if you don't really like Kyren Williams, I would expect you to have him ranked like 28th.
Yeah, that's
like
what
you're not getting him. Okay. And if I really loved Kyren Williams, I would put him 12.
Let me rephrase this. I may have him ranked lower when it finally comes to push comes to shove with the PPR rankings, because I can't see myself taking him over a host of wide receivers.
Right. That's where I was going with this. Are you taking any one of Chris Olave, Drake London, Devontae Adams?
All of them I'm taking over him in PPR.
Okay, so you're definitely going to push him closer to 20, if not farther.
Maybe I've overrated, because in some of our drafts he's gone really early, like early round 2. I've seen him come off the board. So maybe I just have a different opinion. A little bit of I need to fix my ADP a little bit.
Right. And I've got him as an early round 2 running back, but I definitely want to get Blake Corum if I get Kyren Williams.
I get that.
Yeah, I don't know what happened here, but I mean, when I looked up this morning, Kyren Williams was 16th in ADP on Draft Sharks, which is what I cited. Now I'm looking he's 21st. So either I read it wrong or maybe I had non-PPR up. I don't think so.
So I don't think it's even
in our off-season ADP.
No, that's what happened. I had non-PPR.
Don't beat yourself up over off-season ADP, Adam. It's really out of whack right now.
He's 21st in full PPR, but no, I think I've seen him in one site. I forget what it was. Had him in the 3rd round in ADP. So I actually think Kyren Williams is someone that you could be getting a lot in the 20 range, Dan. If you.
No, I take it back. If I really looked at this thing, I doubt I'd be pulling the trigger on him over a host of wide receivers in full PPR.
He's 15.2 in our offseason.
Yeah.
Hashtag Ask FFT fans only mock draft.
Okay.
Yeah. Adam, I used your term. I hope you're happy.
Mock drafts. There's been a bunch of them.
No, you said fans only, right?
I said your fans only line.
No, that's not my line. My line is only fans.
Oh, well, it should be fans only.
No,
I think Dave's right. It would be funnier if it was fans only.
No, it's Adam's way. It's funnier, but also
that's the
dirtier.
joke. Yeah,
Adam's showing off his naughty side.
Yeah.
Now our podcast might be NC-17.
I'm showing off his
You have
naughty
to have
side.
your
It's
mom or
hilarious.
dad with you while you listen.
I'm bringing that back at least multiple times on the rest of this. Adam showing off his naughty side. Naughty Adam.
All right, we need help here. We need help, everybody.
Yeah, we
need your
do.
help. We are not. Yeah, we're a nominee for Best Sports Podcast in the People's Choice Podcast Awards. Once again, we are going to win it this year. Let's do it. We appreciate all of you do for us, and we hope that you enjoy our show enough to nominate us to advance to the final round. So to nominate Fantasy Football today, go to podcastawards.com/app/sign up. And honestly, if you just go to podcastawards.com, you can probably figure it out from there. Toggle down to the sports category and nominate Fantasy Football today. The whole process is going to take less than 60 seconds. We have included the link at the top of the episode description as well. So again, this is podcastawards.com, the sports category, nominate Fantasy Football today. That'll get us through to the next round. And then we're probably going to have to, actually, no, I don't think you vote. I think they have a panel, but at least get us to the next round so we can win in podcast awards. Appreciate
Can I ask you a question, actually, because I heard this promo yesterday when I was on the show and you were taking another vacation day. Were you not nominated again for best male host of a show?
I don't know. I haven't seen the nominees.
Okay, because I thought you were like a 4-time winner of best male host of a show.
Okay, that category doesn't exist.
That's the one you said it was, I thought.
No, we're talking about wait, let me see.
You were best male host, you told us.
No, there was a category that was best male hosted podcast. They were separating male hosted podcasts from female hosted podcasts, and our show was nominated. Now you are referring to
what?
But it wasn't about me, it was about the show.
Oh, it was about you.
You are referring to when I won
What'd you win?
Best Influencer of the Year on Podcast Awards a couple of years ago.
Wow.
Be in the closet if you don't believe me.
They when they think of Adam Mays, they think of male influence, social media influencer these days.
I mean,
really
he gets millions of likes on
He's
the
a
gram.
trendsetter, that Adam Mazer.
Gets invited to fancy parties.
Stay tuned for more players that we're worried about being wrong about and a Dan Schneider story after this break on Fantasy Football Today.
We need your sports news anywhere.
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
About this time, I usually do the news and notes, but I think we're going to do players worried about being wrong about. Let's get into the crux of the show here. We'll do Dave's list, and then we'll get to the notes, and then we'll do Dan's list. So, Dave, you are worried about being wrong about CeeDee Lamb, who is the number 1 wide receiver off the board in ADP, number 2 overall player. Are you worried you're too high on CeeDee Lamb?
I am worried that we're expecting CeeDee Lamb to replicate what he did at the end of last year. And what was that? After the bye, this isn't like the last 3 games of the year. After the bye, Dallas decided, we're going all in on Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. Those two are going to lead us into the playoffs. And they were right. He did. It was to the tune of 12.6 targets per game, 28.5 PPR points per game, 19.3 non-PPR points per game. Ridiculous numbers that we really don't see. As an example, in the past 10 seasons, only 3 wide receivers have averaged 12 or more targets per game. It's Julio Jones, Antonio Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, and they all did it in the same year, 2015. That was weird. What was in the water in 2015? I think CeeDee Lamb, even if he's down to 10.5 targets a game, 11 targets per game, can still be really good, still get you over 20 PPR points per game. That's what you're expecting. But what if the number goes back to what it was before the bye? It was 7 targets per game. It was 14.9 PPR points per game.
No chance, though, right? There's
Listen, I think there's a small chance that Dallas realizes, okay, we can't have it all for 17 games rest on Dak and CeeDee Lamb. They're going to have to figure out a run game somehow. They're going to have to find somebody else to get involved in the passing game somehow.
Really?
So, yeah.
How are they going to? They don't have a good running game.
They don't have one yet, and I don't know if they ever will, but I think that they're going to have to try with whatever they have. And I think they're going to have to try with Jalen Tolbert, Brandon Cooks, etc. I think they'd be. I think Mike McCarthy will be on a moving walkway to Firedville if he targets CeeDee Lamb 7 targets. If he targets him 7 times a game, if he dials that up, it's got to be more than that. I think he'll be good. Will he be far and away good like he was last year? Might he be wide receiver 5? I think that's in the realm of possibility. And no one wants to take the first receiver off the board and have that guy be worse than wide receiver 5. So I'm a little bit worried that I've got the wrong receiver at the top of my rankings, but I've kind of been riding CeeDee Lamb all along, and I don't have enough evidence to put Tyreek ahead of him. Certainly can't put Justin Jefferson ahead of him with Sam Darnold as his quarterback to begin the year. Amon-Ra can't go ahead of him. Jamar Chase can't go ahead of him. I don't think I'm missing anybody else.
You know what it sounds like to me, Dan? It sounds like Dave is talking him. It sounds like he's talking himself out of it, but for no real good reason.
No, the reason is he won't be close to 30 PPR points.
Nobody's asking him to be, because that would be the best season.
But if you're taking him as the first wide receiver off the board, you're hoping for north of 20.
And
I hope he gets there, and I'm not moving him down. I'm just a little bit worried that maybe he won't get to 20.
Well, hold on. I'll get Dan in 1 second. But we're talking about PPR fantasy points per game, right? So forget about what he did, 28.5 points per game. I had it at 27.7. After the bye, you had it at 28.5, whatever it is. So I think we had a slightly different date range. Forget about that. Let's just take what he did for the full season. It was 23.8 fantasy points per game. So I would not recommend anyone draft CeeDee Lamb expecting him to score 28 fantasy points per game. It would be the best season ever. So, but 23.8 fantasy points per game or thereabouts, do you feel like that's going to happen?
No, I think that's within the range of possibilities,
Yeah.
but it's toward the high side. Like I almost feel like that's the ceiling. Can you replicate 23? Maybe. How many times has that happened in fantasy? I'd have to go back and look it up. Back-to-back seasons with 23 plus PPR points?
That's a great question.
I do not know if that's – I don't know if that's ever happened.
Yes.
For receivers.
I want to say Cup did it, but only because – no. 25.7 and then 22.6 the year.
Wow.
Okay, but even 22.6 is amazing. We would take that right now from anybody.
Hopkins never did it. That's a great point, Dave. Yeah, it's asking a lot. Okay. Dan, what do you actually we're good. Let's go to Jordan Love. Let's talk about Jordan Love. Dave, what's your I don't want to beat a dead horse there. Jordan, what's your concern about being wrong about Jordan Love? What's that all about?
I think I'm a little too high on Jordan Love. I really thought that he finished the year really strong. I thought he began the year strong, even though he was making some mistakes, a little slow to fire, but he got better. I guess I'm just concerned that Josh Jacobs getting there plus regression could make Jordan Love a low end QB1. Maybe he gets around 20, 21 fantasy points per game, a couple of games with 30 and a couple of games with 16. But when the offseason started, I had him in that 23 to 25 point per game bucket. And I kind of still do. But what if there's I guess I can make this argument for all the quarterbacks that broke out last year, including Stroud, that there could be regression. The difference being that Stroud, I don't believe Stroud averaged as many fantasy points as Love did. So I wonder if Love's can come down and Stroud, if it goes up, maybe it doesn't go up as much, but we're talking about Love. And I'm worried that he will be in that 20 to 22 point per game range rather than 23 to 25 and not be a difference maker, but be okay.
Okay, Dan, I will allow you to talk on this one.
Well, first of all, I want to call into question every Azer stat I've ever heard prior to this, after that mishap with the stat from the last time when Dave was right and you were wrong about the date range, the stats, and everything like that. I think this seriously calls into question every Azer stat we've ever heard on the show and throughout the show's history. Secondly, I was just told I was going to get to talk a little bit. I had a good CeeDee Lamb point. You're like, never mind. We don't want to hear anything. Okay, we'll move past that.
It was a good decision by me.
It was a good decision. Thirdly, and I'll stop wasting time after this, was that a Jiminy Glick Martin Short reference you had before that?
Not on purpose, but then I thought, like, wow, maybe if I did a few of these segments as Jiminy Glick, maybe
I love Jiminy Glick. He's literally like my favorite skit on the internet by far. Do yourselves a favor. He just did a great one with Bill Hader, but do yourselves a favor and watch the one he did with Larry David. as belly busting funny. He's the funniest person
the
ever.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus one is actually my favorite.
I gotta see that one. I haven't seen that one. Jiminy Glick, Julia. Okay, I'll find that out.
Oh, you guys have so much in common with my parents. It's amazing.
No, who doesn't like Jiminy Glick? But nice reference.
How do you feel about Jordan Love, Dan Schneider?
It's not bad, by the way. It's not bad.
I can do better.
For Jordan Love, the way I look at Love, I'm like torn on Love because I watched so much of him last year on tape, especially, from that Giant game, that range of I watched the Lions game and the Giants game on tape, and he really looked good. He looked like he was moving through his regressions incredibly fast for somebody just really starting for the first year, getting the ball on time, all the things you need to do to have success at the NFL level. But there's just some part of me that feels like a reservation because the sample size is still so small with Jordan Love, and because of everything I've ever heard since I started studying football seriously, which is give defensive coordinators 8 games of tape on a quarterback within the same system, and things change and they can adjust to it. Will that happen against Jordan Love? I'm not sure. And he has all the weapons to prevent that from happening. And especially if what you say, Adam, which I know you're really high on Christian Watson this year. So am I. The talent is there. If he can be healthy for this year, which he wasn't for Jordan Love last year, just another weapon in the arsenal. I feel the same about Luke Musgrave, who flashed but got hurt. And then Josh Jacobs could make that a more balanced offense. Everything is working in his favor around him, but I find myself finding it really hard to pull the trigger. For example, we're looking at the QB rankings right now. I wouldn't take him over Brock Purdy. I would never take him over Brock Purdy. I don't think I would take him over Tua. I feel like there's more inherent risk with him because he hasn't had it's in such a shorter stretch of him running that offense and running it successfully, despite the weapons that are around him. And if that offense at all if that defense at all, which has been terrible, takes a step forward, it could change the whole feel of that team. They could become a little bit more run first with Josh Jacobs in the mix. I don't think they signed Josh Jacobs for nothing. I think they gave him a pretty hefty contract to potentially be a workhorse back there. So I don't know. I think it's just a little bit more reservation for me when it comes to Jordan Love. So I'm with Dave on this.
I worry a little bit that this is an episode where we're just going to kind of make up things and create ghosts for these players.
Well, that's
for example,
what I meant for the Lamb thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did that for the Lamb thing. By the way, Justin Jefferson past 2 seasons over 20 PPR points per game in each.
Over 23?
Over 20.
Oh, that's
21.7 in 2022, 20.2 last year. But that's what you're looking for now from a wide receiver in round 1. As close to 20, if not over 20, if you can get it. I think Jacobs will be used like Aaron Jones was. I don't think that it's going to fundamentally change the philosophy of the Packers offense just because Jacobs is there. And I think that that's actually a good thing for Jordan Love.
I think with Love, we can't ignore that he had 247 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. I think the rushing touchdowns probably come down.
Yeah.
The yards, though, we compare him to Purdy and Tua. If he really is a 250 rushing yard guy, he's going to crush Tua. He's going to beat Purdy in that regard. But I have some doubts about that. I don't really know what to expect there. I could see him being more like a 150 to 200 yard rushing guy. Didn't run a lot in college. He had a lot of games last year where he had 1 or 2 rushing yards. It's not really a big part of his game. And also, as much as I like Christian Watson, I do like him a lot. But I don't really think they have a true alpha number 1, great receiver on their team. Maybe Watson, but I don't think so. And when you look at every elite quarterback in fantasy, they either are really good running or they have a stud wide receiver, right?
Right.
I don't know that I don't think he has that.
Yeah, I could say that. I don't think he has a stud either of those two yet. That's why I'm wondering if what Josh Jacobs was brought in to do is going to change the offense in any way. But I think that's dependent on the defense because the defense has been really bad there.
All right. I like that. See, that one, yeah, that's a good – that's a tough one. Is you do have to decide Jordan Love, who's QB 10 in draft shark safety, versus some really good players. Dak Prescott, certainly he's going to go ahead of Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, but it's not hard to see those guys having better seasons. Purdy, Tua.
What about Kyler?
Oh, yeah. He goes back to back with Kyler. It's an easy Kyler for me. Not even close.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. And it's Love for me.
Oh, well, Dave, I appreciate that.
It's one of those things, you know it when you feel it. That's how you know when it's Love.
That's the tagline for the Azer stats.
You know
it when you feel it. It's a feel-based thing.
Yeah. Tank Dell is wide receiver 30 on Draft Sharks PPR, 5th round pick. Although now I'm starting to think that everything I was looking at was half PPR before. Or it was non-PPR before.
Would you like a link to our offseason ADP?
I was right. I looked at it. Honestly, Our offseason ADP is not good enough yet. I'm sorry to say it. CJ Stroud is the number 2 player in our offseason ADP.
No, he's not.
Yes, he
Don't say that. There's been problems within the
I question
guys.
everything you're
There's
looking
been
at.
super flex drafts. There's been things going on. Don't worry about it. The ADP will be fixed. This happens every year. We have issues with ADP. Then eventually we get more drafts in. The ADP corrects it.
Adam, I will send you a link. He
All
is
right.
not second.
Well, Adam made that part up. Yes.
No, I did not. That's what I was looking at. I believe I try to do it. We're just not there yet. We haven't had quite enough draft. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, dude, no. He's in round 5 where he belongs.
In non-PPR, CJ Stroud is the number 2 player.
You're looking at something wrong, Adam. Now you're just trying to prove your point by faking things.
I'm looking at non-PPR. Which
I'm looking at it.
There haven't been enough non-PPR drafts.
Okay, so all right, fine. I'll just look at.
And I'm
Move
sure a
past
lot
this,
of them
Adam. Move past.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Don't downgrade our ADP. Our ADP will correct itself.
All right,
Well, the
Tank
PPR is fine. The non
No, Adam. You don't know that we've been under fire for our ADP before. Do you not know that?
That's the whole
offseason,
reason why we're doing
last
this.
offseason we were under fire
was
for
partially
ADP, and
your
now you're
idea.
feeding into the fire, feeding into the flames. Company man.
Okay, all right, shut up. I'll just use the PPR ADP, which is fine. Tank Dell is 60th overall, 59th overall in CBS PPR ADP, and CJ Stroud is not. Okay, anyway, what are you worried about being wrong about in terms of Tank Dell, Dave?
That I'm too low on him, and that he could end up being maybe even the best wide receiver in Houston this year for fantasy purposes. I think back to the games where he helped bring Houston back. They're trailing in the fourth quarter, and he's just in perfect sync with CJ Stroud on downfield throws. And I'm not talking about like go routes. I'm talking about deep out routes and corner routes and things that you don't necessarily see from rookie to rookie. In fact, I believe he's the only rookie receiver in the last decade to average 15 PPR points per game from a rookie quarterback.
Wow.
And it's either him alone or, I think it is just him. Because I had to do the research on this for the story in the magazine on rookie quarterbacks and what to expect from them. Just absolutely rare for a rookie receiver to do that with a rookie quarterback, and rare for a rookie receiver just to even average 15 PPR points per game. It's not as rare, obviously, but it's impressive. And I can't help but think that when it comes to explosiveness, he's the one in Houston for that. Nico's good. He can get open with his footwork. Diggs can too, but not like Tank Dell. And Dell won't see bracket coverage very often with those other two guys on the field. All it'll take is more targets than we expect, and Tank Dell could run away as the best receiver in Houston. I love going after him, especially when he's the third Houston receiver coming off the board.
Dan, don't you find CJ Stroud to be one of the more interesting and revealing quotes in football now? And the way he talks about Nico Collins.
Yeah.
He basically says like Nico Collins is an absolute superstar. He's probably said it may have said that about
to be fair on Dell. I don't know if you saw this, Adam, but on Dell, he was asked on a few podcasts ago, like pick your all-star team. You could build a team, and at wide receiver, he picked a couple of guys that aren't on his team, and he picked Dell over any of the other guys. Yeah,
he didn't pick Nico.
No.
All right, so he's just kind of a talker then.
So he's just kind of a talker.
He is a really good quote though. Very insightful guy. Are you worried about being too low or too high on Tank Dell?
Yeah, I'm with Dave. I'm very worried about being too low on Tank Dell, and I'm very worried about not having a good grip and feel on how to draft the Texans receivers this year, because that's where I'm at right now as we work through draft season. All the mocks we've done, the rankings, everything I've put into for the magazine, do not have a good feel for this because, like Dave said, Tank Dell was really freaking good on tape last year, and it was just like what he did. And everyone who watched him on film in college and said, when they told you, oh, he's 5'8", all he's going to be able to do is play the slot in the NFL. And you're like, wait a second. I literally watched play after play, game after game of him winning at all three levels, vertical, intermediate, and short on the outside. Why can't he do it in the NFL? Because the corners are bigger. Well, he did do it in the NFL last year. And I'm curious to see if he now plays more slot with Diggs there. But I don't know. I think Diggs at this stage of his career might be the slot guy, to be honest. I think he might be, quite frankly, the least explosive of those three. But I don't feel any more comfortable just even talking it through about where I'm going to get these guys, how to draft them. Which ones do I want? How many do I want? Do I want them at their current ADP? Because it's very hard to predict how this is going to go. Sure, the rapport was great with Dell last year. The rapport was pretty damn good with Collins, too. It's blank slate with Diggs, but Diggs is obviously a player who carries a big name brand, and he signed, like, they're not bringing him in to not be targeted at all. I almost think we're going to see a lot of short area targets for Diggs just to get him involved and get him the ball, make him more of a PPR type of guy. And I think maybe Dell will be what Dave was saying, that explosive playmaker for the offense. So I am worried about being too low on Dell, but to be honest, I'm worried about being too low on all three of these guys.
I'm worried about being too low on Dell for sure, but he goes last of them. I'm not super worried about being too low on Nico Collins, as I think he's being drafted. Some people are taking him in the second round. I mean,
right.
I'd be worried about being too high on him there. I think he's a third. I think Nico's a third round guy. I think Diggs is like a mid to late fourth round guy, and Dell's a fifth round guy. Hopefully, late fifth. But yeah, I'm not worried about being too low on Nico Collins, because I don't really see how he gives you mid second round value. I think he's going too high, Dave. Nico, if he's going in the mid second round, which he is on Fantasy Pros.
Sure, but I think it's with the assumption that he'll be the target leader in Houston.
By how much, though? I mean, does he get to 100?
Yeah, that's the thing.
I don't know.
I do not know. I did research on this months ago. I probably should publish this, but I've got all kinds of ideas on why Houston went after Diggs, what role Diggs will have, what it means for the other wide receiver. And I think I really made it hit Dell more than Collins. And maybe that's the one thing that I'm especially worried about being wrong on, is that maybe it does take targets away from Nico, because Dell, like I talked about, and like Dan mentioned, is much more explosive, and that Stephon Diggs just has this great pedigree and is in a different role where he's not the de facto number one guy. And theoretically, that would mean that the coverage would be different. I think the Texans are going to see a lot of zone coverage anyway. I think everybody's going to see a lot of zone coverage this year. And that'll just make things easier for those underneath throws inside of 15 yards in the middle of the field that I think are going to go to Stephon Diggs, not so much to both Collins nor Dell. So I guess I'm just most unsure about how those perimeter receivers will play in Houston, and if it'll be to the same level as it was last year. And if I had to pick one receiver where I think it's a little safer to say it'll be closer to the same, it would be Collins than Dell. But I might be wrong on that.
Okay, last question. I got to wrap this discussion up. Is anybody worried about being too high on Tank Dell if he's going, let's say, around the round 5-6 turn, top 60 overall, with Christian Kirk, Terry McLaurin, Jaden Reed, Chris Godwin, those types of receivers on the board? Is anybody worried that they're going to be too high on Tank Dell?
I've got Dell over, I think, all those names already. So maybe that means I'm too high on him. But
no, it doesn't mean that.
I mean, there is upside here for him to be just outstanding.
Yeah, he's an insane talent. He had an amazing rookie season. Like you said, it was historical in a lot of ways, especially from a report standpoint. But to answer your question, Adam, no, because I have a lot of faith in this Texans passing game, but more important in CJ Stroud, more importantly in the Texans passing game. If you look at the numbers, they were really, really, really pass heavy in neutral situations last year. And they were seventh most attempts of any team last year. Sure, the defense could take a little bit of a step forward. Maybe that'll be more game script that leads to less pass heavy.
Sure.
But I don't know about that. I think that's how they want to win. That's how they believe their offense is set up. It's not exactly like the Shanahan. She's a Shanahan disciple, but it's not the Shanahan system. It's not born through the run game. It's born through CJ Stroud in the play action passing game. And now Diggs is in the mix. So I think that will just continue forward. So just from an overall volume standpoint, I think it'll be there to support these players.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, just in case you missed that, Dan did say that Tank Dell had a historic rookie season from a rapport standpoint, which I guess is something we can measure now.
That's something Dave said. Dave, I don't know if you were listening because you're probably thinking about being nominated for the best male podcast host again. But Dave said
he's thinking about OnlyFans.
Dave said
mock drafts.
He said that Tank Dell and CJ Stroud. I forgot the stat, but it was, now you're confusing me, Adam. But it was something about
I heard
15 PPR points per game. Rookie receiver with a rookie quarterback.
Did you hear that, Adam?
We measure rapport.
That's measuring rapport. Rookie receiver, rookie quarterback. Okay, Adam.
We got to go to break here, but why don't you read this comment we got from Scott? And,
if Adam added a cream hair product, faded the sides, and clean shaved, he would be on CBS proper and leave the others on the internet, but we'd miss him.
I give it a shot.
You know what he will be doing this year? Shaving 3 lines into his head. I'm not joking.
All right. Well, we're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we'll have we gotta pick it up a little bit here. We haven't talked about enough players. Rashee Rice when we come back on Fantasy Football Today.
An unsub, a seasoned one, and he's leaving a calling card.
How do we find a ghost? I have a plan.
All right, we are talking about Rashee Rice, who had I would say, a borderline historic rapport with Patrick Mahomes last year. When you look at all those receptions, he is wide receiver 39 on Draft Sharks. Let's see where he's going in CBS ADP, 86th overall, just after Rome Odunze, Rashee Rice. Dave, are you worried that you're going to be too low on Rashee Rice?
That's it. I wonder if and this is something that will be adjusted in our rankings as we get closer to the regular season. What if there is a minimal suspension for his offseason transgressions? What if there's no suspension and it doesn't come until 2025? And Rashee Rice falls right back in as a primary target for Patrick Mahomes in the Chiefs offense. It's not going to be like last year for Rashee Rice because they've got Marquise Brown, Xavier Worthy, not to mention that Kelsey guy that we know a lot about. But it could still be that Mahomes feels most comfortable with Rashee Rice as that short and intermediate target. Although toward the end of last year, it was just a short target. His ADOT was really, really low, but volume was in his favor. Maybe the volume will be a little bit less, but he still has that nose for the end zone. Could still come through 5 catches, 50 yards and a touchdown 8 times, 9 times a year. And we're taking something like that in the round 7 range with upside for him to have some monster games mixed in. That's a guy who should be going higher, and he might be going higher by the time we get to late August, early September. I just can't rank it that way because I am expecting a suspension of at least 4 games. That makes me a little bit less excited to draft him, knowing that I can't use him until week 5 at the absolute earliest. And then the Chiefs have a bye in week 6. That could be something that really does make him more of a mid-season booster to a fantasy lineup, and it might not be what it was last year. That's why he's going in round 7, round 8 in my rankings.
What about this? Just a thought on Rashee Rice. He had 79 catches, 938 yards, 7 touchdowns on 102 targets in 16 games. Rashee Rice was per game wide receiver 32 in non-PPR, wide receiver 27 in full PPR per game. I think, Dan, this could be, and I am also worried that I'm too low on Rashee Rice because any wide receiver as a rookie who reaches 900 yards, it is a somewhat exclusive club, and it's a really good club. It is usually a very good player, and he did
the 900 club.
Yeah, exactly. Never mind. I was working on another naughty joke. Anyway, I think there's a chance that his rookie season will be the best season of Rashee Rice's career. Like a pretty decent chance.
Wow.
Yeah,
I don't know if I hate that. I think I kind of like that call.
They don't want to be this kind of offense. It's obvious. They don't want to be this offense that's throwing the ball 7 yards downfield on average, like one of the lowest ADOTs in the NFL, the Chiefs. They keep talking about getting the downfield passing game going. They signed Marquise Brown. They drafted Xavier Worthy. I could see his rookie year being his best ever.
It's definitely possible. I mean, they've added those 2 receivers downfield. That's going to open up space in the middle of the field. But the thing with Rice, it's interesting. I want to see the evolution of how they use him within the offense. I remember we did a Beyond the Box Score last year, Adam. I don't remember the exact week. It was somewhere in the mid to late season. The Chiefs were playing in a dome. I think it was the Falcons. Did they play the South last year? I don't remember. It was one of those dome teams that they faced. And it was the first time all season we broke down Rashee Rice's tape that he was utilized in a bit of a different role. He ran an out and up with Mahomes. He threw him a back shoulder about 20 yards down the field, showing off just like a great, trust in his receiver to throw that type of route, out and up back shoulder. He was running the intermediate routes, the vertical routes. And I was like, okay, this is what it's going to evolve to, because he was that kind of receiver at college. You could see him do everything in that offense he was in the college level. But that didn't really surface the rest of the season. It was odd. It was like a breakout, and then it was like, okay, now he's back to this role where he's just catching these like quick hitters around the line of scrimmage. And like you said, that role is probably not going to go away, but it's definitely going to be diminished in the coming season and seasons with the new talent they've added at receiver. We know that they're not, like you said, they don't want to run this offense. But at the same time, Adam, we do have to take into consideration that teams are not likely to, at any point for the rest of Patrick Mahomes' career, do anything but play 2 high looks, 3 high looks, cover 3, cover 2 against him with a lot of depth from the safeties. It just is not. It's they've added talent receiver. That doesn't mean the teams are going to start pressing up on the Chiefs and like giving him those vertical shots. It's going to look like the space for this. The way this offense is going to win is still going to be with quick hitters around the line of scrimmage because that's all the defense is giving them.
Yeah. I'm worried about it. I'm worried about being too low on him for sure. And this is a guy, Rashee Rice, whose ADP is going to change, as Dave said when we learned about the suspension. But
if there is no suspension, how high does he go?
0 games, which I highly doubt there would be, but then he'll probably be like a 3rd-ish round pick, 3rd, 4th.
Are you taking him over Mike Evans?
No.
Are you taking him over DK Metcalf? I don't think I am.
Maybe a full PPR. Are you taking?
I think
over Tank Dell?
I might. Yeah, I think I might take him over Dell. But even in saying that right now,
this is with no suspension.
A little.
Yeah, no suspension.
I'd take him over Dell with no suspension.
Yeah.
Would you take Rice over Pasta?
Over who?
Pasta. Rice over Pasta.
I would take.
Oh, it's one of these. These are a terrible joke. I like Pasta better than Rice.
Everybody likes Pasta better. Okay. Let's look at some news and notes. Some wide receivers who want new contracts. Tyreek Hill wants a new contract. Brandon Ayuk, we know that. He says he wants to stay in San Francisco. He says he wants to be there. CeeDee Lamb expected to miss the start of training camp. He wants a new contract. Cortland Sutton.
That could be another reason to be against CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
He misses training camp. That's usually problematic.
Oh, jeez. Look at this terrible take from Jimmy. Rice over Pasta.
Oh, Jimmy, what are you doing?
Hey, that's Jimmy's opinion. Leave him alone.
It's a bad one. It's Jimmy's opinion. It's a bad one. Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey could see fewer carries. They said they got to save Christian McCaffrey from himself. They don't want him to have too much of a workload. So Dan's talked about that. Some people, might be concerned about that. Some people might see it as a good thing. Keep him healthy.
First and goal. Put in Jordan Mason to save Christian McCaffrey.
Just let me keep drafting Elijah Mitchell late.
Yeah.
Breece Hall says he feels like himself again. There was an article on ESPN.com about Breece Hall and he had that mid-season slump, and he acknowledged that his knee was not fully right. Robert Saleh had said something like it wasn't until about midway through the year, I forget what he said, where he was himself again. So I bring this up, and I don't even know that he was himself again. Like now he says that
I don't think he was. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're going to talk about Jonathon Brooks in a little bit. Carolina head coach Dave Canales, speaking of Jonathon Brooks, he says, Dave Canales says, it all starts with the run game, and he feels confident the team will be able to have a successful run game, which will set up a lot of other things for them. Got an ESPN report that said KJ Osborne, Demario Douglas, and Jalen Polk could be New England's top 3 targets if everyone's healthy. Osborne has been kind of like the number 1 guy, it seems, in terms of drills and things like that. Demario Douglas and Jalen Polk, that could be the top 3 trio for the Patriots. JJ McCarthy. I know. JJ McCarthy will not start week 1, according to the Athletics' Alec Lewis. We'll see, but we, I guess, expect that at this point.
Yeah.
If you're playing in leagues that reward punt return yards, Rome Odunze could return punts.
He was doing it in minicamp. Yep.
Kickoffs too, or just punts?
No, he was not there on kickoffs. It was punts only.
Okay. And Dan Schneier's story.
Oh God. What is this even about?
Another unsuccessful day on the softball diamond last night. Another loss.
Okay.
7-2, the final.
Some might say that you're dragging that team down. The record before you joined the team was a lot better. That's all I know.
I thought we would do better last night because Marty wasn't there. Marty's awful. He's definitely our worst player. But
besides you, or no?
No, he's much worse than me.
Okay.
They're going to put me at 3rd because Marty's been so bad there. But
I thought you'd always be a right field kind of guy.
No, I play 2nd. But yeah, no. By the way, I'm just kidding about Marty. Marty is someone who's become an everyday listener, so I know he's listening to the podcast right now. So that's just I'm going trash about him. But no, he's very good. We missed him last night. But I'm at the bar after the game where all the teams go.
Okay. And
I'm talking to Doug, who listens to our show also, and he says to me, he's like, "So are you gonna beat Dan in tennis?" And I'm like, I'm playing really well. He said he's not gonna pick up a racket, which by the way is a lie.
Well, I'm picking up one for the first time this weekend with my dad. I'm not going to turn down my father. He wants to play tennis, and we're going to play.
I said, but Dan is so oddly confident that it is scaring me a little bit. Like
Oh,
it
yeah,
is.
you have no shot.
But then again, keep in mind, you don't know. People probably didn't see this. It was on FFT and 5. Dan, I played him in a game and I beat him 2-0, and that was rock, paper, scissors.
Oh.
I beat him in rock, paper, scissors. And afterwards, Dan goes, I consider myself a pretty good rock, paper, scissors player.
I do. It was a devastating to lose to Adam in a sweep to rock, paper, scissors. I do consider myself. How do you quantify that? Well, by just games played. I've had definitely like a 70%.
You have a winning record in rock, paper, scissors?
Easily. I've beaten my brother in that.
Play
I've won a lot of big series against my brother.
Can I play you right now, Dan, in rock, paper,
It's
scissors?
always best 2 of 3, sure.
Fine. Ready?
No sets. It's just rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Yeah, fine.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Okay, 1-0 me. 1-0 me. Now we go again.
First paper.
Okay. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Got it again. That's a 2-0.
Damn.
That's a sweep.
He is good, Adam. I take it all back.
I'm typically a good player, but Adam I don't want to talk about that rock, paper series.
I don't understand how you quantify that other than.
So it's just got to think about the player you're playing against. I had a feeling, Dave, you'd be a guy who goes back to the well with the same one you threw the first time. So I just fire back with another.
Works on my kids all the time.
Yeah. And you're assuming the first time that I'm going to go rock. So you throw paper. A lot of people assume the opponent's going to go rock on their first. There's a lot of, I don't want to give away all my strategy here. Okay. I'm trying to beat Adam the next time I play Adam.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, to end this story here, he asked me if I'm going to beat Dan, and he had never seen the show. He had only listened. Okay. So I was like, you know what? Take a look at the show. I showed him yesterday's episode. He looked at Dan, and we were both like, this guy is not going to beat me.
Oh,
you are so physically
God.
that
God.
Didn't buy it.
Are you kidding me, Adam? Are you kidding me?
I'm just telling you what he
You're
said.
133 pounds soaking wet, Adam. You're lucky this isn't physical sports for the most part, because if we were playing basketball, you'd be just getting back down every single play. But in tennis, I assume you'll have no power. You'll have no power on your serve. You'll have no power on your forehand. I'm skeptical if you even know how to volley, to be completely honest. I'm very skeptical. This is unbelievable. People think you have any chance against me in this sport.
The guy saw he just didn't buy it. All right, let's go to Dan's play.
You know what? I might start playing before our match. I might start picking up a racket.
You are scared, and you won't admit it. You're breaking all of your rules. You are scared. And by the way, I have a private lesson on Friday. So let's.
Oh no, he's got a private lesson. Oh, it's amazing. I love it. I do love that you're getting addicted to tennis, though. It's an amazing sport. Before I found golf, it was the greatest sport for me.
All right. You are worried that you're too low on Travis Etienne, I'm guessing?
Yes. It's a problem with me with Etienne. I had this last year. Now, with Etienne last year, it was a similar situation as it will be going into this year. There are things I like about Travis Etienne's game. His forced missed tackle rate has carried over from the collegiate level where he was dominant, and that is one of the stickiest stats from an advanced stat standpoint year after year, and it's carried over. He's been an efficient and explosive runner at the NFL level. But what does that get me from a fantasy standpoint? It got me a lot in the beginning of last season, the first 11 weeks of the season. Through weeks 12, I talked about this on one of the other podcasts, the rest of the season, the second half of the season, I think it was weeks 10. He was RB2 for almost every week except for 3. RB22. He just fell off the face of the earth. Why did he do it? He stopped scoring touchdowns. They weren't running him in the red zone. What else happened? They start to throw the ball more. They become more pass-first offense. They're falling behind in games. This year, they've added more talent at receiver. You could say they've gotten worse losing Calvin Ridley. I will take Brian Thomas and Gabe Davis as the combination at least equal. I think, personally, they fit Trevor Lawrence's skill set much better than Calvin Ridley. I'm sure you guys have seen the clips going around of the 7 to 9 horrific drops Calvin Ridley had last season. On 3 or 4 of them should have been
about it last season.
Touchdowns. Most of those, from my memory, were just a little bit over his outstretched hands, or not even over it. Hit his outstretched hands and dropped. Now he's throwing to guys who are 4 or 5 inches taller than Calvin Ridley with longer reach. Those are going to be passes. This is what Trevor Lawrence is and has always been. He's a tall statured quarterback who throws a tall ball, they call it. And that means the ball is going to come out hot and high. And that's going to be better for guys like Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas within that offense. So I think the passing game will get better. I think Bigsby is going to take a step forward from a mental processing standpoint. They're going to feel like they can bring him on the field. I know that's the talk early days. I know you guys are skeptical of it. I get it. I was too high on him last year. I liked his college tape. We'll see. It's year 2. I'm not sold that he's just written off because they like him already in camp, and now he can maybe, hopefully, get down the processing side of this so they can trust him on the field. Regardless, though, there are still reasons for me to be excited about a player like Travis Etienne, a very efficient runner who hopefully can fall into more touchdowns, have more long touchdowns. So I am nervous that I'm going to get this wrong. I guess I got it wrong last year, but again, was it really wrong when he didn't really help you at all through the fantasy playoffs and fell off the face of the earth for half of a season? I guess if you're going by the final rankings, he was probably still a top 12 running back last year, right?
Yeah.
Because he was like 1 or 2 through the first 8 weeks, but I kind of wish I got the guy who was helping me in the fantasy playoffs.
It was 20.5 in his first 8 games before the bye. And then Adam basically declared that it's all downhill from there. And he was at 13.2 PPR points per game in 9 games after the bye.
Full PPR. That is terrible. It
reminds me of 2022 from week 5 on. He started to get more of an opportunity last year. He averaged 13.4. So I wonder if is that the floor, 13 PPR points per game, or is that just what we should expect? And if that's what we should expect, then we are drafting this dude way, way, way too soon. It's something that we need to really think about and really be sure. And I think it's going to be tied to what we hear about Tank Bigsby and what other running backs that they have in Jacksonville. And how much are they still going to use Etienne in the passing game?
Right.
And those factors will probably determine just what the upside is for Etienne.
He is so by far their best running back.
Oh, there's no question.
For sure.
Not even close. And Bigsby, if Bigsby scares me at all, it would have to be he was taking goal line carries away from him, which I thought could be a possibility last year. That would be the only thing. If he gets some carries throughout the game, it's not a huge deal. Etienne had over 70% of his team's carry, 74.6 of the running back carries on the team. That's a lot. So that could come down. I think they want that to come down. But he also had 58 catches in 17 games. He's pretty reliable for 3 to 4 catches basically every single week. I mean, I don't look, if he doesn't play well, I can live with it. But he really represents to me one of the last every down backs that you can get.
Yeah.
It's so
possibly.
But the only thing would be if he loses the goal line work, but he's gonna catch passes and he's gonna
even if he is the every down back though. How many catches is he gonna catches is he gonna
58? He had 58 catches.
Right, he had that last year with a different offense. And look, maybe you don't believe because I think that the receivers will fit this skill set of this quarterback better, and I don't think they want.
That shouldn't affect the scheme in which they run the ball.
I don't think they're really throwing him design passes, though. I think it was more a product of the offensive line was at its all-time low under Trevor Lawrence last year. That should be a lot better.
Yeah, that's not going to benefit Travis Etienne?
It shouldn't benefit him in the passing game. No, I don't think so. It'll give
Trevor Lawrence better now.
Trevor Lawrence is at his peak. Trevor Lawrence is somebody who works through his progressions and reads high to low. He doesn't read low to high. Like he doesn't want to get the ball out to Travis Etienne on these short passes. In my mind, at least, he
didn't do it that often, though. That's the thing. It was not like he had 80 catches. He just had 4 catches a game.
This is not like one of those offenses that funnels through the running back in the passing game at all.
No, it's not. But that's the thing. As long as he's still getting the snaps, look, you know what? Why don't I look up where they ranked in running back target percentage? Because I'm thinking that they didn't rank all that high. We'll see. And it's just that he was the only one getting it. It's kind of like Joe Mixon. We've had years where Burrow has thrown to the running backs a lot and years where he hasn't thrown to the running backs that much, but still Mixon's the only guy who catches any passes for them.
Right.
Still gets over 50 catches.
And these are all reasons why I'm scared I'm too low on Travis Etienne. You're laying out the case for sure. But that case, by the way, Adam, we've made for Joe Mixon a lot, and there's been a lot of disappointment within that case.
He's a top 12 running back every single year per game at 5 of the last 6 years. That's the thing.
But there's a lot of random 3 touchdown games, but he's not a player you really want in your lineup.
Yeah, like the Jaguars through the running backs, the 6th lowest rate in the NFL last year, only 14.7% of their targets.
And I think that comes down.
That comes down?
Yeah,
they were
down.
Last year comes down.
Lower. I want to make that look. I want to make that go like this.
You know what? You have made me feel better about Travis Etienne. Thank you very much.
Reference? I want to make that go like this.
I don't know that.
I want to turn that. Larry David sees some guy. It's a Curb Your Enthusiasm restaurant. He sees some guy when he's visiting New York that he quote unquote knows from LA. The guy knows him, and he's like, Larry, why don't we go out to lunch? He's like, we don't go out to lunch when we're in LA. We're not friends there. Why would we hang out here when we're in New York? He's like, Larry, your world is so small. Your world is like this. He's like, you see that? I want to make that world like this.
I remember that episode.
So
Yeah.
good.
You're worried about Sam LaPorta. You're worried about being wrong about Sam LaPorta.
Yes.
Tight end 1 in ADP. And
Sure.
third round pick.
So he's not my tight end 1. So I'll start by saying I worried about being wrong because everybody, consensus has him tight end 1. He's not my tight end 1. 2, I don't foresee myself drafting him in any format. Auction, there's literally no chance. And then Snake, it would have to be, I guess, just like nobody's drafting tight ends and he just keeps falling. I don't want to invest the what you currently have to invest to get a player like this. And the opportunity cost means I'm giving up a wide receiver I really like, potentially a running back who falls. That I don't love going running backs in that range, but if one really good one falls that has a chance to be a workhorse and a league winner, I'll take that over the tight end who, to be quite frank, could lose a little bit of his role if Jameson Williams takes a big step forward. And we saw a little bit more involvement from Jameson Williams in the playoffs this year. And we saw some coach speak to suggest that they want to get Jameson Williams more involved. Again, they traded up to get Jameson Williams 2 years ago. It's not like we're just poo-pooing it because he had a bad rookie season, but they traded up. They gave up assets to move up to get this type of player. And he was a difference maker at Alabama. Now, even further removed from the injury, very explosive playmaker. Not saying he's going to take over LaPorta's role or anything like that. LaPorta still has his role within this offense, but it's it was in a lot of ways a volume dependent role. So this is just not a player that I'm currently buying, but why am I worried? Because he was amazing last year, and he was that volume player last year. He scored touchdowns. He was a focal point of the offense through the play action passing game. The tight end is always going to be a big part of any play action passing game. So there's still a world I can see where LaPorta averages just like a consistent 6-7 catches a game, falls into enough touchdowns where he does end up being the tight end 1, and in a lot of ways worth the high investment that we're forced to make to take him this year. But I won't be drafting him, so I'm definitely worried that I'll be on the wrong side of that.
Dave?
I think it's worth noting that he had 7 games with 15 or more PPR points. That's what we're looking for from a stud tight end. And he had 7 games with 9 or fewer PPR points last year. And so there could be some inconsistency with LaPorta, especially when you think about the other options in that offense. And it's not just St. Brown, but what if Jameson Williams does get this opportunity that Dan Campbell's talking about? What if there is an increase in targets per game for Jahmyr Gibbs?
Yeah.
And could that all kind of take work away from LaPorta? The one thing that I keep going back to is I love the way that he was utilized. And I don't think that's changing at all. And he was utilized like a wide receiver, and he was running routes downfield and certainly making splash plays. And that's something that I think can continue to happen. And I would want to bank on that from a second-year player. The fact that the whole offense is coming back from offensive coordinator to quarterback to basically the offensive line, there's one change there. It just makes me feel encouraged about this whole offense. And LaPorta's a big part of it. I'm taking him over Kelsey.
And who do you think gets rank the top 4 tight ends in terms of just targets?
Oh, I love that.
Kelsey, LaPorta, McBride, Andrews, rank them in targets.
We can't throw anybody else into the mix?
No, because I'm just going to look at this tier of tight ends, how they're being drafted.
So it was Kelsey, LaPorta. You're giving us Kelsey, LaPorta, McBride, and who was Latin Andrews?
Andrews. I think Andrews would be last.
Yeah, Andrews last for me.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's Kelsey, McBride, LaPorta, Andrews.
It could be, but it could be really close between those 3.
I'm fine with that. I would go Kelsey, LaPorta, McBride, then Andrews, but I think Dave's right. I don't think it's going to be especially if the Chiefs do what some are suggesting and try to keep Kelsey healthy for the postseason.
All right, Jonathon Brooks is the last guy we'll talk about. I wanted to talk about Mixon, but I'm going to cut him and go to Jonathon Brooks here, and he's RB25 in ADP. How do you feel about him? What are you concerned about, Dan?
Yeah, so I'm concerned that I will be too low on Jonathon Brooks this year. That's been across the board for me. I'm concerned with all these guys about being too low on them. Jacob Gibbs, who I really like, obviously part of our show, Beyond the Box Score, really trust his research and what he puts in the time to like players. He drafted him really early in a draft we had maybe 2 weeks ago with him, one or 2 weeks ago, a mock we did. Really stuck his foot in the ground on Jonathon Brooks. And Jamie's talked a lot about Jonathon Brooks, and I understand the upside case for Brooks, and it's what I'm worried about missing out on. The upside case is we just saw a running back in a Dave Canales offense, Rachaad White, who, quite frankly, was among the bottom of the league in every rushing metric that we look at, every advanced rushing metric we look at, every success rushing metric we look at, all the raw stats from a rushing standpoint. one of the worst runners in the NFL, and yet was one of the 12 best running backs for fantasy football in PPR leagues, maybe even higher in full PPR. I don't know where he finished, Adam, but I'm sure. What was it?
4th overall, 10th per game.
Overall. Why was that? He fell into a lot of touchdowns in the red zone, and he caught a lot of passes. So now the case for Brooks is, if he can take over that role, he's going to catch a lot of passes. Touchdowns, that's where I don't know if he's going to be as Rashad Whitey with the touchdowns, because
Rashad White, maybe I'm wrong, but I think he only scored 6 rushing.
No, but a lot of receiving.
3 receiving. 9 overall.
9 overall. 9's a good amount. If Brooks scores 9, I'm going to be way wrong on him.
17 games, 9 touchdowns is really 9.
If Brooks scores 9 touchdowns, I'm going to be wrong on him. We all are where we're drafting him right now. 9 is more than you think. You're underestimating how much 9 is.
But it's, like, for the 4th best running back overall in fantasy, 9 touchdowns.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the point. So the passing game is what propelled it for sure. And that's my worry with Brooks. Now, the reason I'm not drafting him is plentiful. 1, I'm not sold that offense is going to be as effective as the Bucs offense was last season. 2, the offensive line, I still have major concerns. 3, the injury concern. Rashad White was fully healthy. Brooks is coming off the ACL. We don't even know when he'll start. If he'll have similar things we've had from other guys coming off ACL, where they're not fully themselves until a full year removed. They have soreness in year. We heard that from Wan'Dale Robinson. Giants fans heard that from Wan'Dale Robinson the other day. He felt like he had mid-season soreness, had to take a week off where he basically didn't play any snaps. This can happen from a torn ACL recovery. 3, which didn't happen with Rashad White, I don't necessarily think Chuba Hubbard is that bad of a runner. When I've watched him on tape, he's looked pretty damn good. And I don't know necessarily if even Miles Sanders is going to get fully phased out of the offense. He might get some carries. Who knows what these guys are going to get in the Reds too. So there's so much concern for me with Brooks. But on the flip side of it, if he gets the role that Rashad White had, we're talking about a league-winning pick in the middle rounds. And there's very few backs I can take in that range who have his kind of upside. So that's why I'm scared of missing out.
I've moved him down in my rankings because I worry about that path to him being great for fantasy. And we can talk about the second half of the year, the schedule in the second half, really from week 12 on after their bye. I don't think it's really conducive to a running back having huge numbers. I don't think this offense is yet at a point where it's conducive to a running back having huge numbers. So a lot of the points that you made, Dan, I'm really with you on. And my biggest fear is that the Panthers don't have to rush him. The Panthers are still rebuilding. I think they'd have to be very lucky to compete for a playoff berth in 2024. I don't think they've got the defense for it. I don't think they've got the offense for it. So what's the rush with Brooks? Even when they clear him and he's back and active on game day, you really think he's going to take all the touches and be 15 plus touches a game right away? No, I don't think so. Brees wasn't. All right. Javonte might have been. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look. But I agree with you on Chuba Hubbard. And I think Dave Canales has options with the running backs. He can use multiple guys. He didn't have that type of depth at running back in Tampa. Okay. He had Chase Edmonds. He had Sean Tucker. That was someone that I was excited about it. That didn't come to pass. There really wasn't anybody there to push Rashad White.
Right.
And so he just leaned on Rashad White and it worked out. I don't think he has to do that with Jonathon Brooks. So my foot's off the gas pedal with Brooks. Round 6 at the absolute earliest for me.
And the other thing with that, Adam, is we're not even sure that, Brooks will benefit from the same thing Rashad White benefited from, which was, big kick in the butt from Dan Schneider in week 3, putting out his tape on Beyond the Box Score and then getting the, leading to the Rashad White DM, the famous Rashad White DM to me.
Famous. Very famous.
Yeah, he was awesome. He was like, you know what, dude, you're right. You had a good call on this, and I got to be better. And he was better. So who knows if that'll happen for Jonathon Brooks as well.
How you doing with House of the Dragon?
I just watched last night's episode, and that was finally, it felt like a Thrones episode to me. The first two,
I'm not there yet.
I just wanted to be more like Thrones, and it finally was last night. It was a long episode, tons to unpack, like a lot of different storylines finally working together.
People call it Thrones, or is that just a you thing? Because I've never heard anyone call it Thrones.
Well, it's the same theme song, like.
No. Just everyone calls it Game of Thrones. I don't hear people
everyone calls it Thrones.
What? I don't think so.
What are you talking about? No one does the full Game of Thrones. Everyone calls it Thrones. Let's get a poll.
I've never seen an episode of Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones.
That's a lie. I saw the first episode.
You would be that kind of guy, Thomas, who doesn't watch an episode of Game of Thrones. How cool are you?
That's like the only show that I've never watched. Like I watched The Wire. Like I love The Wire.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Nobody calls it Thrones, Johnny. I've heard everyone calls it Thrones. Who doesn't call it
No,
Thrones?
but honestly, I've never heard a single person other than you call it.
What? No one
Dave,
says
any
Thrones.
thoughts here?
What?
I'm with Thomas. I've never watched a full episode of Game of Thrones, but I've seen some of the highlights.
But have you ever heard anyone call it Thrones?
Yeah, like the Red Wedding, like that was cool. And,
Wow,
you know,
just
all the
randomly out of
provocative
context,
scenes.
watch the Red Wedding.
Watch some of the biggest spoilers of the show.
I know, that's crazy.
Yeah, so now I don't have to go back and watch the whole series.
Yeah, another one here. Nobody calls it Thrones.
I can't believe nobody but me calls it Thrones. I thought everybody called it Thrones. What are you gonna do?
No,
Who doesn't like a good? Who doesn't like a good abbreviation shortcut? I mean, what the heck?
I just call it of.
Oh,
It's finally an episode that was like of. All right, we're out of here, everybody.
Wait, Dan, one more time.
Oh, we want a rematch.
Yeah.
I need time to consider my play.
Oh,
Okay.
gosh, just go.
Okay. Ready?
On your
Rocks, paper, scissors, shoot. Yeah. You felt a little late there, Adam.
That was a delay.
No.
Adam felt a little late there. It felt a little late there.
No.
It felt a little, I'm going to give that to you, and we're going to walk it off. But I won the series, and that one felt a little late for those who are watching on the YouTube.
I was about to put you on.
I trust
phone
Dave,
for
though.
rock,
Dave's
paper,
like the
scissors
most
to
honest
beat me
person I
again.
feel like I've ever met through any of these work things. So I do trust that he didn't do that it wasn't as late as it looked.
Here's a quote. Here's Joe Lynn on our chat. This is something that Dan's the reference he's not going to get. He's never
Yes, I am. Mean Girls. Adam thinks I don't get references. I get references.
Quit trying to make Thrones happen.
You know what references I won't get? Frasier references. What are you on, season 23 now?
Nah, I stopped.
Has anything happened? Or is he still just walking around New York, going to coffee shops and talking to people?
Seattle. He lives in Seattle.
Seattle, whatever.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Cousin Isles.
Good old Frage, we call it. We just call it Jure. We're out of here for today. To all the people who said I'd read your emails, sorry, we went long today. Try to do that on tomorrow's show. We have 2 more episodes this week, and we're recording both of them on Wednesday. For Dave and Dan and Thomas, I'm Adam. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today.